Hi there. This is John Thompson. Thanks for tuning in to this version of our Borrow Smart, Repay Smart lesson. I'm John Thompson, the team leader at the TG Loans Mortgage team. All right, so today's lesson is a continuation of how we compare our homes or real estate to other investments. I'll get rid of that. Other investments. And last lesson we talked about safety. This lesson we'll be talking about liquidity. And then on the next lesson, we'll be talking about the rate of return. So how do we think about the wealth in our homes? We understand that when we have money in savings or cash, we kind of get where that money is. It's pretty liquid. We can get to it. We sort of get when we put money in the stock market and other types of investments. We're taking some larger risks, but we're hoping for a little bit larger returns. But in many cases, the house wealth we have is often the largest asset we own. So the question we have to ask is our largest asset safe? Is it liquid? And are we earning a good rate of return? And the reason we compare those three things is because that's how all investments are compared, whether you're buying soybeans, oil, real estate, or gold. Is it safe? Is it liquid? And is it a rate of return? So the key question we have in this liquidity thing is if you had to access money from your house quickly, would you borrow or would you sell? Right? So would you borrow, would you sell? So liquidity really is the use and control of your money. And how can that wealth? Wealth, again, is the equity in the house. It's the difference between the mortgage you have and the home value, and that difference for many people, again, is the largest asset they have. And how do you access that money, or can you even access that money, and so forth? And so, again, here we're talking about one way to access is sell the home. Other way to access it is to borrow for it. And many people think, oh, no big deal, I can borrow for it. And we're going to talk about is that easy or not. So we get the liquidity. So cash, bonds, and stocks are pretty immediately available, maybe within a day or two, depending on the market and settlement and so forth. Insurance, if you have cash value in life insurance, you kind of get that. You can get to that cash value. It might take a few days or a week or so, but you can usually get to that really quickly. House equity, though, if you're selling, it might take you, maybe 2 to 4 or 5 months to be able to get to the money inside the house. And if you want to borrow, it's sort of a minimum of maybe 30, maybe up to 60 days. All right. And so is that liquid or not? It's not very liquid. The biggest hurdle, though, potentially, is that borrowing is typically faster than selling. And if you need to borrow in the future to access money inside the house, there are 4 sort of hurdles to consider. And these hurdles can be sometimes kind of challenging. Hurdles are that you have to be able to borrow, right? And so in order to borrow, you have to have good character. You have to have the capacity to repay the mortgage. In other words, a good job and be able to qualify for the debt ratios and the debt. The collateral, the house has to be in good shape, it has to be appraised and so forth, and it has to be able to qualify for the mortgage as well. Then you have good credit. You have to be able to maintain your credit and the rest of it. All of that is to be able to borrow. So keep in mind that in order to access the wealth in your home, you've got to be able to borrow. In order to borrow, you got to have a job, you got to have good credit, you got to have good collateral, you got to have money in the bank, and have to have good character. And those are kind of challenging things sometimes for people. Right. So as we kind of sum up here and go on to, comparing these two things with liquidity, we got to keep in mind the liquidity of the largest asset is sometimes pretty challenging, right? Unless we're ready to sell, accessing the wealth requires borrowing your own money. Keep in mind, it's often your own money that's in there. Therefore, you're having to qualify and pay interest just to get back your own money. You put in the down payment, you make a monthly mortgage payment. That's all your money that you earned. Now you put that money in the house, and now to borrow it back, you have to borrow it. You have to qualify to borrow it back, and you have to pay someone else interest, right? So we always advise to have a line of credit, a home equity line of credit, and for senior citizens, be able to be sure to have a HECM or reverse mortgage in place to be able to access money in your home as well. So maintaining your ability to borrow is obviously key. A job loss or a health issue could prevent access to your own money. And before making any large principal reductions, make sure you understand safety, liquidity, and rate of return, and discuss all that with your advisors. All right. So thank you very much. We appreciate you listening into this lesson of the Borrow Smart, Repay Smart lessons. And please tune in for part 3 coming up soon. Take care.